Good afternoon, Riga. Good morning, United States. And hello, everyone, anywhere you are watching the forum. And I'm really proud and happy to be here today. Exactly 1 year ago, during the forum of World Latvian Innovation and Economics, we were discussing that Latvia needs unified brand image. And at that time, we had very different ideas. What could it be? We were discussing the idea of the capital of music. We were discussing the idea of technological advanced, smart country. We were discussing the idea that Latvia could become a space for ideas. And so there were different opinions, but we were very united in one thing, that Latvia deserves and needs one unified brand image, so that in the world, in a couple of years, Latvia become recognized as a brand that can offer something to the world. So today, I'm going to walk you through the process we had after the last year's forum, which was led by Ministry of Economy, by Latvian Investment Development Agency, by Latvian Institute, and where I had the honor and responsibility to organize the workshops and idea sessions that led us towards the idea and definition of unified Latvia's brand. So the goal, of course, is to create a very strong and unified brand image for Latvia to attract more interest, investment, and talent. All of those very important questions, very important fields. Why is it so important? Well, I think I have shown these graphs for many times already, but I think it's still important to remind ourselves that strong country brands win. Win in terms of attracting investment, win in terms of attracting talent, win in terms of selling more of their products and services abroad in exporting markets, and win in terms of attracting tourists. So strong country brand is something that Latvia has to look forward. Are we strong at the moment? Well, we are not really in a worse state, you can imagine. We are around 40, number 40 in the world in different kind of rankings in creativity, innovation, good country rankings. And so it's not a worse state, but it's definitely, it has a lot of perspective, a lot of potential to reach those countries like Finland, Iceland, or even our neighbors Estonia, which happen to be in much higher positions in all of those rankings. So it's doable. But what we see when we look in those top 10 or top 20 or top 50 most valuable country brands, what all of them they have in common is they have a couple of themes, couple of topics that almost everyone in the world knows about them. For example, Denmark, we know it's, environment, safety, cleanness is something where Denmark has been standing for last 20 years, and that's how we recognize Denmark. We recognize Finland very much for their educational programs, for the school systems, which now has become an example to almost to the whole other world where to take from. Of course, in Finland, we also would know about their nature and saunas, very popular also here in Riga, here in Latvia. Liechtenstein, finance, Austria, culture, Germany, technology, and well, beer and Oktoberfest as well. So, but what is important that there are some of those topics that really stands out. And what does it mean that those countries, they're talking about it, they're investing in those topics, they are developing those industries or those themes so that they can really become something that, builds the country brand. So the task that we were given from Latvian government and Ministry of Economy was to nominate those most promising topics for a unified brand image of Latvia with experts from very different fields. And of course, while choosing the most perspective topics, we always have to remind ourselves, very important, that these topics, they have to be true, so we have to live them, we have to show great examples, case studies, case stories to justify that we can propose something like this. It has to be relevant to the different countries, to the different audiences in the world. So it's very important to have this outwards, looking from the world perspective to ourselves, not just inwards perspective. It has to be inclusive, so, which means that it would be great if as many industries in Latvia, is it exporting companies, is it startup communities, is it creative industries, is it scientists, that they can be part of this umbrella brand concept, not left out. Of course, we can't include everyone. It's almost impossible in any good strategy or good kind of narrative, but still, we were aiming to really include as much important industries and groups of people in Latvia and outside Latvia that's possible. And last but not least, the future potential. Of course, we want to have an image that becomes even more interesting, and there's growing demand for it when we look forward in the next 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years. So it was important that whatever topics we were discussing, that we always question ourselves. Is it true? Is it relevant? Is it inclusive enough? And does it have a future potential to help really Latvia to grow and to help world to collaborate with us? So shortly on the workshops. So we did 5 different workshops with altogether around 120 people participating from almost any industry and field important to Latvia's brand. And of course we couldn't invite everyone, but we tried to invite as many as possible. So we had the group for exporting brands, big and small. Red Jackets helped, the Association for Exporting Brands helped organize it, and together we were 27 exporting brand representatives. Many of them spending most of their days outside Latvia. Some of them in US, some of them in different other markets. So it was very important to include in this group as many people who spend a lot of time, driving around the world and seeing Latvia from the perspective as those people who are working from here, really understanding the experience we can offer to anyone else. We had people from tourism, hospitality, hotels, airlines, like Riga team, so our capital marketing team was represented, and many others from the tourism field. And then the third group was all about investment, attraction, technology, startup communities, and again, a lot of great minds, great talent that we were happy to work together to try to understand which are, the most perspective topics, the most perspective image that Latvia can offer to the world. And then we added 2 more groups. And Latvia Institute was as a big contributor to those 2 groups, organizing them and helping it happen. And those 2 groups were combining foreign affairs, safety, policy, public affairs people and experts, as well as people from creative industries, culture, history, science and education. So quite a wide range of fields, range of expertise, and range of very bright minds that I was happy to moderate those groups. So how was the workshop designed? And what was the method chosen? So we chose the method we call the brand role, which means that we don't want just to have a static idea what we are about. We really want to, play an active role as a country, offering something to other countries in the world. So a real value, a real proposition, something that we can actively, be engaged with. So, and how do we get to the brand role? And in the most simplistic terms to explain, it's finding the sweet spot between what Latvia can offer, what is our strengths and experience we can offer and skill set, and what people in the world, in Europe, in the region, what they want, what are their tensions or dreams, or what is something that we could really make ourselves interesting to them. In other words, what is the sweet spot between Latvia and the world where we can really add value and add contribution to other countries, to other industries? So when we during the workshops, we spent as much time on discussing what is our strengths and the experience Latvia can offer, as much we spent time discussing the trends that we see in the world, the tensions that we see in the world. Is it sustainability? Is it automation? Is it tolerance? And many other issues that we find very important out there. And of course, Latvia can't respond to all of those trends, and we are not very strong in all of those sectors. And that is why we also were looking very closely, so which trends can Latvia respond to, and how do we combine it with what we already have as our strengths. And from this, in every group, we met with every experts, every person from those different fields. At the end of the workshop, we were voting for the most perspective topic that we all as a group see Latvia could live up to when doing our marketing or branding in next coming years. So within each group, we ended up with one favorite topic that we think is something Latvia would be going forward and have a lot of business and brand potential. What were the most mentioned topics and associations during those 5 workshops? Well, of course, many of them. And again, just like a year ago, almost every person in a room will have their own idea of what Latvia is about, what can we offer, and there were so many different ideas. But still you can already see a trend from some of those words that are bigger than others. Those were most often mentioned during all of those 5 workshops, like terms like creativity, like technology, nature, talent, safety, education, connectivity, traditions, and others. Still too many, right? So we of course had to narrow them down and go into more specifics. So if you combine all of those different most popular topics in 3 groups, so we were mostly discussing Latvia's strengths regarding to people potential, of our talent, of our education, of our creativity that we could offer. We were discussing environmental potential, which is the nature we have, the geography and traditions, and of course achievement potential, what regards our progress, technology, connectivity and safety. So these were the groups. But if we look more closely, what was this one topic that was voted as most popular in every of those workshops? Let's start by the first one, the exporting brands. After a long day of ideas, long day of discussions and coming up with different directions, this group voted for Latvia offering and solving complex tasks quickly, creatively and at world level. In other words, just give us a challenge and we'll deal with it. And actually, COVID and pandemia has shown that Latvia is really becoming even more innovative, creative and united when, you know, the situation is complex and when we need to react quickly. And if compared to bigger countries with bigger systems, of course Latvia, with this small size we have, we actually can move faster. And there are very good examples during this year how we managed to solve many of those issues more successfully than other countries. Still we have, of course, some problems to solve, but Latvia is especially strong when it comes to dealing with complex tasks, complex issues. This is the theme, the topic that exporting brands clearly saw that potential for. When it comes to investment attraction and startup and technology group, the nation of unicorns stood out as the most perspective topic, because we have so many fields where we see that Latvia can punch above its weight, that we can really show extremely good results in culture. Is it opera singing? Is it tennis? Is it sports? Is it also startups and different businesses, most oftenly in very niche industries and categories, but still showing really creative and good results in dealing with those fields and products. So we could be a nation of unicorns if we would go forward with the proposition that was voted as most popular in investment group. When we come to tourism group and hospitality and travel, we were discussing that Latvia could offer, the space and place to recreate, to get away from the stress, which is, of course, a big issue, especially people in big cities like Moscow, like London, or even Berlin, and many others. Latvia can really offer, natural environment to find harmony, get away from stress and improve yourself and enrich yourself. And as culture life is also very rich here in Latvia, it's of course very enriching as well. If we go forward to 2 more workshops, which happened to be online because it was around April, March, where we were living already in online, and Zoom platform was the one we used for, brainstorming ideas. And I think it was a great exercise, and it allowed us actually to engage and invite some people who were not presently in Latvia, like the scientist who is working in Paris, and he was joining one of the groups and could kind of, offer his view and many others. So from Foreign Affairs and Safety, and of course, they were mixed groups. We also had people from creative industries there. We really love the idea that collaboration and cooperation is something that, Latvia can help dealing with, because Latvia is very connected. We had only 2 handshakes here, so it's more easily to organize something, to access almost any talent in any field. But also Latvia is very connected in terms of, connecting ourselves with other countries. And of course, Air Baltic is a great success story, has been so far, and hopefully Rail Baltica will become another one. So the collaboration aspect also has shown historically that Latvia has gained and regained independence. The Baltic Way, the Song Festival, and so many other very impactful ideas and projects have been done while, collaborating, connecting different fields together in one, public and private, and dealing with complex issues. And the 5th workshop ended with the most popular theme being wild creative power, meaning that Latvia constantly finds new ways to connect, create and surprise, which goes back to very long traditions that we still have, closeness to nature, and this, again, very rich cultural life that constantly feeds our creativity here in Latvia, anyone who lives here or who visits Latvia or who works here. So again, this wild creativity is something that we can add to the world, add to different projects and ideas that already exists out there. So we have 5 different groups with 5 most popular and perspective themes and topics that they saw Latvia could go forward. And of course, 5 are still too many to work with, right? So that's where we started to bridge them together and connect some of those perspectives in one. So we came, while in having many discussions, again, with almost every ministry and different groups of people, with the team of President, Council, and Prime Minister, and then, of course, the Development Agency and many others. We came back with 3 themes that nicely combines some of those topics proposed by different experts in different fields. So the first one, combining this idea that we have very natural space to recreate, and combining the idea of creativity, is a natural playground. So it's a natural green space where people, companies, different groups, organizations in creativity, in culture, in sports, in education can experiment, can create, can test their ideas, and really play with new ideas, new concepts, and make them into life. So the natural playground was one idea that everybody felt, yes, we feel that's a big one, that's a strong one. Is it true? Yes, we can definitely say that Latvia is a natural place to be. According to last year's Eurostat data, Latvia is the 2nd greenest country in the European Union. We have a good platform to, create new ideas. We have a first 5G laboratory, which was set up in Latvia just recently by Microtik and LMT, and the 5G, one of the leading 5G forums happens to be in Riga for the 3rd year already. The biggest startup community forum happens to be in Latvia, TechChill, that attracts a lot of investors and investments here. Arts, culture, I mean, we have so many wonderful world-class events that show a lot of creativity, experimentation, and freshness. So we can be very exotic and fresh to many other countries in terms of cultures. And of course, the story about our natural playground would be incomplete if I wouldn't mention the Song Festival as a great example of really collaborating and putting creativity into one, and singing in a cappella choir 20,000 people all together, or dancing 5,000 people all together in one nice big field. So there is a lot to offer when it comes to natural playground. So the other theme that we also thought has a lot of potential, is very strong. It's about this idea that Latvia is more ready for different kind of challenges than many other countries are, because of our historic reasons. We are kind of survivors. Because of our climate, we are struggling all 4 seasons. We know how to deal with it. But mostly, of course, for just, going through different crises and different challenging, complex times, Latvia has proven that exactly during those times, during those periods, we are more united, and we are really getting, creative and just moving forward. So some of examples from this year, because of course this has been quite a challenging year, not just for us, for everybody in the world. So Latvia is one of the first countries in the world offering e-government. So the government where you can e-sign, so the place you can discuss the new regulations and rules and actually vote for them. Latvia was first country in the world that built the Stop COVID app based on Google and Apple new contact tracing tool. And so many other great new products, inventions from the startups, from the big corporations that not just have been, created, they already have been produced and sold in most of the cases almost anywhere in the world, like these beautiful hand sanitation design stands created in Riga, and now I see them in so many places around Latvia, and hopefully also in different places around the world. Or those temperature systems, control systems for hospitals created by Saftechnica, who never produced those systems before. Or Shield 48 face shields that has become a really good quality product in the industry, that in the world, very demanded product in the world, and many others. And also I've been very excited to see how creatively different festivals and events have treated COVID. And of course, Riga Jūrmala, one of the most professional festivals, admired by already by many famous world musicians and media, they managed to turn it into Park and Beaches Festival this year. And Riboka, despite challenges, our Riga Biennale was also an amazing, fantastic event that will offer everyone in the world also experience of Riboka in the format of the documentary film, which is still in progress. And as mentioned already by Zanda Lukašević-Kalniņa, our export during this tough year has reached a new record in September. So exporting goods, we have never been exporting as much volumes as we did this year. And also the investment, Latvia has managed to attract, despite in Europe there is a 30% drop on average, Latvia has doubled the amount of investment attracted this in 9 months of this year if to compare to last year. Of course, we can always say that maybe last year wasn't the most successful in Latvia, but still, I mean, this is the time of crisis and we are doing even better than last year, which is a great sign. And again, comes back to the idea that Latvia is especially ready and open to different challenges, to difficult tasks, difficult problems, because the easy ones, of course, robots and big industrial companies will solve with better speed than we. And the third idea, again, connecting different aspects from those different groups of workshops and experts, was connecting worlds apart. Is really the idea that Latvia can help connect different fields, different cultures, different people under one, big idea or issue to solve and really do it. In terms of technological connectivity, Latvia is number 4 in European Union, even ahead of Estonia, in terms of our broadband and mobile connectivity levels. And during the last couple of years, Latvia has shown progress in terms of becoming even more connected. But of course, we don't talk just about technological connectivity. We also talk about connecting design with technology, arts with nature. Like this beautiful example, this is one of the concerts happened in August, where a crowd of people, having safe distance, were watching a beautiful performance from their boats in the lake just nearby Riga. And one of my favorite examples of connection, where the inventor from Latvia connected boat, bike, and the house 3 in 1, and is offering world a new beautiful invention where you can, bike, boat, and also stay overnight with just one nicely designed, equipped houseboat. And of course, there are so many other examples, and there's of course also so many homework still for Latvia to do to become truly a natural playground, to be even more ready for the next challenge that Latvia will face, and to collaborate and connect different worlds, different fields, and different cultures. So if we want to prioritize those 3 themes, 3 topics, then we asked help to the Golden Circle Pyramid by Simon Sinek, which asks those 3 very simple questions about the brand. Is it the country brand? Is it the city brand? Or just a product brand? What is that you can offer? How do you how do you offer it? And why would anyone care? So if we would put our 3 themes in those, as part of answering those 3 questions, I would say that what is definitely this natural playground we can offer, the space to create, to test, and not just any space, a good quality green space with good quality of life and great technological infrastructure. How we do it? Well, by connecting different fields, different cultures, different groups of people, connecting public and private, and also being really ready for different challenges. So having the mindset that, the more complex the problem, the more excited we get and the more creative we get. And so this is exactly what the world needs a lot of times. And so, but then the big question, why? Why is it important? And I think almost everybody that we have been discussing this brand image definition and brand image priorities was agreeing that this enabling, that if Latvia could enable ourselves in Latvia and those people outside Latvia, those organizations, investors, talents, tourists, that they can experience in Latvia the place where they can create, they can easily experiment and test their new ideas. Is it a business idea? Is it a new project in arts or in different other fields or in science? So if we could really bring this forward and become a big enabler for other countries and for ourselves, to come up with those fresh new ideas and great experiments that turn into great new projects, then we can become a big, great creative powerhouse, or as we would say in Latvian, jaunradas lielvalsts. But of course, again, there's a lot of homework Latvia has to do to proudly say, yes, we are there yet. Otherwise, it was just a nice promise without a big future foundation for different activities that we have to show constantly, every year from now on. So again, summing it up, so we really see that Latvia has a lot to offer in terms of creativity, in terms of experimentation, and in terms of having this natural playground where different startups, talents, and people from different fields can realize themselves and come up with new great initiatives, ideas. Even for tourism and other fields, we can add some twist of creativity and connecting different fields together to make a new, fresh ideas and to make Latvia stand out. So if you would ask, is creativity a key, then just recently World Economic Forum had the article on really that answering the question for myself, that creativity will be the key to competing against artificial intelligence and the future of workforce. And of course, attracting talents, as I'm sure we will be discussing also during this forum, is very important. We want to attract and keep the best talent that are already here in Latvia, and also attract the best talent to Latvia. Only then we can really, offer significant creativity in terms of science, in terms of ideas and business. And to end, reminder to myself and to everybody else who will be working with Latvia's brand image, with materials, with the content and the stories and the platforms and the brand designs. It's so important that we first do the homework, that we make sure that we have the right legislation, that we have the right support to creative industries and science and these startup communities, so that those new ideas can be grown here, can be born here. So if you want to be admired, be admirable. That's what one of the world's best-known country branding experts, Simon Anholt, has reminded many times, and I can only agree to that. So thank you so much, and I wish Latvia a great, unified and very strong brand in next coming years. And the good news that Latvian Investment Development Agency has been given a mandate to organize all the further projects regarding it. And I really wish them and anyone who will be participating in those further processes good luck, and be creative there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andris. I'm going to ask you to stay on stage. We've actually had a tremendous response online to your presentation, and so I'm going to present you with some of the questions that have been submitted. We actually have enough time for this. And I wanted to maybe just start out by asking, brands evolve and change over time. They need to be maintained. I think about, in terms of economic terms, Japan in the 80s and 90s was known as this technology and innovation powerhouse. A brand that has maybe shifted over to China nowadays. Mm-hmm. So in instances like that, what's the strategy for maintaining and developing the brand, and maybe specifically in the context of Latvia? Are there plans to have a committee? You mentioned these 5 working groups. Yep. Are they going to be permanently in place to constantly evaluate and perhaps maintain that brand?
Well, when it comes to my responsibility, the project has ended
Yes.
around September, when the government approved the strategy, the priorities that everybody agreed would be most potential ones to build further Latvia's brand. So it's really the question how the process will be organized, and really hope that many of those people who participated in the working groups, is it people from here or people from different Latvians outside Latvia, will be given a chance to participate when it comes to specific activities, campaigns. So I really think and I hope that this will be very inclusive and collaborative process when it comes to executing those marketing ideas and campaigns, as it has been so far, organizing those kind of idea sessions. Mm-hmm. And coming back to first question, of course brands are evolving, but again, only when you consistently communicate one specific or couple of specific topics is over 3, 5, or even better 10 and more years, only then you can become, you can have this top of mind association with this topic. Mm-hmm. If it's just one campaign and then you move to the next one and next topic, you will never reach to the point where you are really well aware and have this strong image. Mm-hmm. So I think even though after a couple of years or 5 years we can kind of change the focus or priorities, we still need to agree on, on this unifying theme or topic that we will always put forward when going to different conferences, when doing campaigns around Latvia's business and culture activities. Mm-hmm.
If I could ask then a follow-up question. You mentioned towards the end of your presentation that the Latvian Investment Authority is taking on the responsibility of managing this brand going forward. I see we're being invited to take our seats here. Let's make this more relaxed. You mentioned that the Latvian Investment Authority is kind of taking over responsibility for this brand management kind of going forward. What's the role of government or government leaders in again, maybe supporting or promoting a country's brand? I mean, in this case, what would be the president's role? Should there be a role, or is it really best handled by the investment agencies of the world, various countries?
The best examples I've seen in the world is also interviewing different country brand marketing teams, is when there is a dedicated team that is responsible for organizing everything regarding, brand design, brand packaging, the content, the platform, for all the success stories that Latvia can tell to the world. So it has to be one dedicated team, but at the same time, it's important that everybody, like President's office or Prime Minister or different ministries, are also part of it in terms of at least once a year defining, what are priorities for next year, designing this integrated communication plan, which is still yet to come. I hope so for the next year. And then, of course, very important to support it with sufficient funds and investment. And this is why Latvia was lacking consistency also. It was partly because this mandate was given to Latvian Institute, who has never had sufficient funds, to really come design and develop a great content and great platform. Of course, they've done the best they could, but I think this is the first time in last 12 years, I think, that Latvia has agreed on one unified brand direction to go, and first time when Latvia has already booked a reasonable amount of investment to support it. Actually, it will be very close to what our Baltic sister countries are also investing in their country marketing.
Okay, well, that's a great segue to one of the questions that we got through the internet. The neighborhood that Latvia lives in, Northeastern Europe, Northern Europe, we have a friendly rivalry with our two neighbors to the north and to the south. Can you give us your assessment and perhaps an update on what Lithuania and Estonia are working on as far as their brands?
Yeah. So Estonia, of course, we know that Estonia is the most famous kind of aspect of Estonia brand, and they are still working on offering many more new tools and services which are available online for the public and state services, but also, of course, they're also well known as the kind of the country of Skype and the country of now I think 5 or even 6 unicorns that have been born in Estonia and now world famous in the world, like Bolt and TransferWise, besides some others. So I think Estonia still is really kind of developing on the brand that they already has acquired, and as you saw in the rankings, Estonia is in a way ahead in front of us. Regarding what regards Lithuania, we are basically working parallelly. I know that they also have been defining their brand positioning, and what they have agreed, again, having a lot of workshops and groups, very similar actually process to what we had in Latvia. They have agreed that they would offer world this ability to co-create. So it means that they want to offer their collaboration and their cooperation spirit, so that together with Lithuanian minds, is it fintech, is it talents in different spheres, that they can by collaborating create something new and something big together. So Lithuania has, and I think it really nicely matches their temperament, which is they are more kind of outward going, outward looking, more expressive as a nation. And I think this idea of co-creating is quite nicely fitting what Lithuania is about. So I think what Latvia has chosen to really become this creative powerhouse where new ideas can be, experiments, tests in culture, in music, in business, in startups can accumulate. I think it fits us, and it nicely complements the 3 Baltic countries' story. So if Estonia is kind of the place, you would imagine that everything happens online, and Lithuania is, the great collaborators, then Latvia is the place you would offer, a space to create and a space to test your new ideas. Even though they afterwards, are exporting in the world. And saying this, I think there's a lot of potential that Latvia can use, especially Latvia, because we are in the middle of Baltics, that we can use uniting and connecting all three Baltic countries and, acting as one, especially when we go to Asia or, states to more far from our region we are sitting here. I think there's a lot of potential when Baltics can, join forces and act together and show the strengths in our region rather than just trying to outcompete each other, which often happens, of course.
Are you suggesting there's room for a Baltic brand?
Definitely, but I think the best time to work on Baltic brand is when all three countries will have confidence enough and will have, their own brands made, packaged, and well-told stories out. I think only then we'll be really ready to kind of, to develop one unified Baltic brand.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the transition of responsibility from the Latvian Institute now more to the Investment Authority. One of our questions online, I think, touches on this a little bit, and it references an online article where Vita Matīs states that too much emphasis is being placed on exports and products and not enough on public diplomacy and culture in terms of creating Latvia's brand. And I think that cultural element has been a historical emphasis, and now it's maybe more on that export. So can you comment on this article to those of you who've seen the article?
I think there's a lot of misinterpretation. I have read recently in the media about the process, about people not involving enough people. As you saw, I mean, we had in one workshop, it was mostly the culture, creative industries. We had the head of our arts museum, the head of contemporary theater festival. So I think some of the most active players in terms of culture and creativity were part of the process. So that's really something that probably was not communicated enough, how the groups were organized and what were offered to participate. So Latvian Institute was really taking care that, as much as different industry players from culture was also there. And public policies and foreign policy people were also participating in one of the workshops. And the process was pretty open. After we had those initial themes, I myself and I think Latvian Development Agency has been presenting those findings to almost, again, so many different groups of people, so many NGOs and ministries, including, of course, culture ministries, that I think it would not be fair to say that we have excluded, and just focused on economy here. But of course, I mean, exporting businesses will be the driving force of, our success on prosperity in Latvia. So I think it always has to start, what can we really export to the world? And of course, it can include culture, it can include sports, it can include businesses. But I think it's really important that we are not stuck just, in one field or other field, but we really see the whole picture, which we were trying hard to do.
This next question really appeals to me as someone who spends a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and I imagine this question may have come from one of our Latvian entrepreneurs. And the question is, do you want Latvia to be a green, restful playground or a world-class 5G AI technological powerhouse? The Silicon Valley name was not created by its workers or a committee.
I think we can really offer both. I think the magic in Latvia is really the combination that we have enough resources and tools and technologies, and we are 5G ready to experiment and offer great infrastructure, but also we can still offer this closeness to nature and this cleanness of air, even in a capital, or if you just take your 15 minutes drive with any transport you prefer, you are in the middle of forest or in the middle of pretty wild beach. So I think it's actually mix of both is something that makes that puts Latvia in really unique position, because there will always be greener countries in the world, and there will always be more probably more like Silicon Valley, a great example, where more investments or more innovation happens. But there are not so many places that can offer this magic combination of having the green and pretty clean environment with this kind of technological infrastructure and availability of talent and resources that we have.
Now, this next question is coming from someone who I think knows a fair amount about your background and history. The question is, your master's thesis was also about country branding, and what were the conclusions there?
Yeah, I spent 1 year basically just, researching Latvia's brand way before this process started, and interviewed around 30 different people from, again, different fields, and actually many of them also being, Dutch, German, American people living here in Latvia. So again, to have this outward view. And I must say, we have arrived to pretty similar conclusions. Yeah, at that time, my narrative was more on free space for ideas, or free this kind of the space that, and of course we don't have a lot of people here in Latvia, but we have amazing lot of space to offer. So I think the direction that I researched and I offered during the master thesis for Berlin School of Creative Leadership is complementing the narrative and the focus that we have arrived together with those 112 or 116 experts here during last year, organizing these workshops and kind of defining what it could really be. So I think creativity was in both cases there, and I still really believe that this ability to create with limited resources and kind of solving complex tasks in environment which is pretty good quality in terms of air, in terms of food, in terms of nature, is it's a kind of the magic mix that we can offer.
Great, thank you. We've got some more questions coming in here. You touched on this during your main presentation, but I think one of our viewers was left wanting to hear even more. Can you tell us a little bit more about the? Hold on, I gotta get it back on my screen here. The Born in Latvia brand. Can you tell us a little bit more about how did the idea emerge and what's the aim behind it?
Yeah, that's another story. It started from the Red Jackets Association, where we kind of combine all the largest Latvia's exporting brands. And one of their requests was, please help us designing a unified Made in Latvia sign that we can more proudly put on our products, on our services, on our transporting cars, boxes, websites. So idea was to really have a beautifully, nicely designed identity for the Made in Latvia brand. So it was a separate parallel process to this one, which I was sharing more today. So we included a lot of our exporting companies, and we gave the task to a very professional team of designers who came back with the identity for this Latvia's origin brand that exporting companies can put on their packaging, on their websites. And the idea was to create the most flexible identity in the world. So the idea is that even the Born in Latvia is the main or the kind of the number one form we would see it. It can also be created in Latvia, crafted in Latvia, made in Latvia, and probably many other ways that we will find that suits better some of the organizations or companies. Also, we found out that we could allow a lot of flexibility in terms of colors, allowing some companies who offers to promote or to emphasize our greenness to have it in green color or blue color or any other color that they prefer. So it's we have some of the things that are defined and even more things that are kind of flexible, so that everybody in the world who wants to show their kind of belongingness to Latvia, is it idea who is born here, or is it the product who is been made here, or is it event which happens to be in Latvia? They can use this identity, this sign, as a sign of origin.
One of our questions here is actually about Riga. Riga in the overall Latvian context obviously is a big percentage of Latvian population and a huge contributor to GDP. And the question here is, do you think Riga should have its own separate brand from Latvia?
Yeah, I think Riga still should, develop their own brand, which they have been pretty successful if to compare to Latvia. For example, they already had this dedicated team, enough resources, and this live Riga brand. I think it still fits the rich and live experience you can have and enjoy in Riga. Of course, it also has to be developed, and of course, Riga brand and Latvia brand, again, they have to complement each other. They shouldn't kind of contradict too much, which probably was a bit of problem with the previous Latvia's marketing kind of and branding exercises. And the good news that also when we were creating this unified image for Latvia and defining our top themes, top topics that we want to see as part of our future marketing of country, Live Riga and Riga City marketing team was participating in the workshops, in the brainstorms, and were actively also kind of making sure that Riga is part of the Latvia story, which it will always be because of the kind of importance of the capital city that we definitely want to have in future stories of Latvia as well.
This next question is kind of adjacent to the brand theme, but it references an article recently that appeared in The Economist, and I unfortunately don't have the date, but the article mentioned mentions that 47% of work done by humans will have been replaced by robots by 2037.
Yeah.
How will artificial intelligence and machine learning play a role in Latvian economics in the near-term future? And I imagine the parallel question, if we were to bring it back to the brand theme, brands have their own identity in the virtual world, in the digital world. We as humans can be brand ambassadors, but at some point brands take on a life and energy of their own in the virtual space. So if we talk about AI and machine learning in the future, what's going to be the role there for both the brand and Latvia's economy?
Yeah, I think there are two kind of separate themes. One theme is because so many jobs will be taken over by robots and artificial intelligence, what will be needed even more will be new ideas and creativity, because that's one thing that robots can't do. They can repeat what we already have, and very often, of course, they can be part of the invention process, but there will always be this human element and people kind of imagination that will be needed, even when, so many jobs will be taken away. So that's why I think very important that this creativity and, offering this creative playground, natural playground, would be, one of the focuses when building Latvia's brand. At the same time, of course, Latvia has to be part of the game. We have to be part of, having those tools and having artificial intelligence as much as possible, having automation in almost every company or organization in Latvia so that we become much more effective than we are today. And I think we also have some great examples like Tilde, one of our great kind of IT company who has been putting Latvian language and artificial intelligence in very highly in their recent developments, and our IT industry I think is pretty strong, and we have some good examples of new experiments in terms of 5G and so on. So I think we definitely have to be very strong knowing and using those new tools that 5G and AI will offer. At the same time, we really have to, learn to become even more creative. Since, in the schools, in education, I think we have to put more focus on how can we develop our own ideas rather than just learn what already exists. So I think the idea that robots will take away many things, we have to really train ourselves to become more creative and use this potential to come with, surprise the world with new ideas.
Mm-hmm. With this next question, we're going to bring things back to the immediate near future, and this is maybe a question more about strategy and the practical side of Latvia's brand. How do you see the synergy of various institutions and stakeholders in the country branding process in Latvia in the future? Who should be involved? You had your 5 working groups.
Yeah.
Kind of in the next near future, who should be involved, and how do you see that synergy working?
Well, I think it's important that, you know, the public and different ministries and Prime Minister office and President's office, everybody is kind of on the same page when regards, you know, what are those priorities and what's the role from each of them, you know, to making this brand alive. Because as we have seen in Estonia's case and many other countries, presidents, prime ministers, other ministers, you know, ambassadors in different countries only, and of course industries and exporting brands and culture, only when everybody is really kind of supporting each other while sharing the story of their country, by sharing our recent success in this kind of, you know, creative playground theme, only then we can build a strong brand, because we will never have enough resources to do a big campaign, global campaign. It will always and mostly be really depending on our own ability to share our story. Is it, you know, the minister, is it official ambassador or these unofficial ambassadors? And I'm happy to be part of this forum, because I think this Global World Latvian Forum is a nice place, a nice forum that brings those unofficial Latvia's country ambassadors together. But so I think there's a good potential, because we have a very energetic team in Latvian Development Agency. We have a lot of support from Economic Ministry, other ministries, and President's Office to kind of really collaborate here. And I think this idea of having a campaign from WLEIF, which was about ahead of the curve, basically sharing the stories, what Latvia has done during the last 6 months to cope the crisis and to innovate and create new products. I think that was already a good test how, you know, collaborating with different ministries and different industries and connecting it all together and putting in one platform and then inviting many other Latvians to promote those stories. I think that was a nice test, which we should definitely learn from and use also in the future, you know, communication of Latvia's new content that will hopefully be created soon.
Great, thank you. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. I imagine this is a topic that we will be returning to in the future at future WLEIF forums, and it's a topic that I'm sure a lot of us have, you know, divergent opinions on. So I think we're going to have a lot of future active discussions on it. Again, thank you, Andris, and I'll offer you an elbow in thanks. And with that, we'll transition over to our